What's up, guys? Vernon Kid here. We just trying to get over a little of the stuff that I've been giving you guys. Why did I think this was a good idea? I usually don't do back-to-back horror stuff. I let it marinate once and then I do something funny and then. But all right, so check this out. We are back again. I decided to give you guys more scary stuff, and you could see my reaction to it and things like that. This video comes from Dr. Horror, and I've watched a lot of his content before, and he makes good content and creepy too. And this one really just makes me like, what the fuck? Link in the description down below, as always. What we're going to watch here is serial killer and real life vampire, Richard Trenton Chase. It's from Dr. Horror. Let's do this. Let's do this. Serial killer. Here we go. Now, Richard, vampire of Sacramento. So this shit happened in California.
Richard Trenton Chase was born May 23rd, 1950
this fucker
in
looks
Santa Clara,
sick.
California. Chase led a relatively reclusive life until his bloodlust and taste for human flesh got the better of him later in his life.
He's a fucking cannibal too?
His unconventional habit earned him the nickname the Vampire of Sacramento and an unsacred reputation that lived on well past his time on this earth. Like many serial killers, Chase's path to murder and cannibalism began at an early age. His father, a notoriously sick man, often subjected the young Richard Chase to unjust physical abuse. Financial troubles only increased the tensions in the household, feeding into the rampant child abuse. His parents were often heard arguing by neighbors. By the age of 10, Chase had begun to exhibit evidence of the McDonald triad of sociopathy. The triad of traits includes serial bedwetting, arson, and cruelty to animals. His mother was the first to notice the strange behavior in Chase's obsession with fire. He could often be found with a book of matches burning small piles of leaves and sticks. The second red flag came when his mother cited Richard's pattern of bedwetting. Richard had been known to wet the bed into his early teens, a habit that is broken by most children by age 5. While these two habits may not seem indicative of a bloodthirsty serial killer, it is the third trait of the triad that causes Richard Chase's family to seek psychiatric help for their son. One morning, Mrs. Chase was preparing to feed the family cat. She killed the cat, didn't he? But soon noticed that he was taking much longer than usual to respond to her hails. Suspicious as to the whereabouts of her cat, Richard's mother began walking the family property in search of the pet. She soon walked up to 10-year-old Richard with the cat in hand. As she approached from behind, she thought he was simply petting it, but as she moved closer, she was horrified to find her son was wrist deep in the organs of their family feline. Before this incident, neighbors, school, friends, and even Chase's sister said that on more than one occasion, they had stumbled upon Richard capturing, torturing, and mutilating small animals. Though it was never proven, a neighborhood dog had been found in the woods eviscerated and rotting. The imprecise tears and cuts to the animal eschewed any sentiment of this being a human act of violence, but retrospectively, many believed that this was one of Chase's first victims. These persistent mutilations around the neighborhood were enough to rouse the suspicions of his mother, who began to seek the help of 2 different psychiatrists to help Richard. But because of financial strains, the family was unable to pay medical bills and soon lost the house and the counsel of the psychiatrists. Richard's adolescence was plagued with academic failure, substance abuse, and legal trouble. As a sophomore in high school, he was arrested for possession of marijuana. Once he graduated high school, his drug and alcohol habits only worsened, soon causing him to drop out of college. It was during this time he once again was put in the company of another psychologist. The first psychologist that noticed dangerous signs of mental instability. Chase had multiple girlfriends since reaching the dating age.
Look at his fucking eyes.
All of these relationships failed to last. Chase noted the reason for this was because he was experiencing erectile dysfunction. Initially, psychiatrists thought that this might be a side effect of consistent substance abuse until looking into his previous psychological history. They came to the conclusion that his erectile dysfunction was either a manifestation of repressed rage or severe mental illness. It was later learned that he was only able to achieve sexual arousal through violent and disturbed acts such as mutilation, murder, and necrophilia. Chase didn't give this diagnosis any sincere thought and began to descend into a state of insanity due to his relatively unsupervised lifestyle. He began claiming that he could absorb vitamin C by placing an orange on top of his head. He also often claimed that his heart had stopped beating or even that someone had stolen his pulmonary artery. His paranoia reached its peak when he moved out of his mother's house after he claimed that she was trying to poison him. This would prove to be the point where his descent into darkness was truly irreversible. At 21 years of age, Chase moved into an apartment with some friends he had met in college. His roommates described Chase's behavior as extremely unsettling and disturbing. They reported that he was often in a drug-addled state of incoherence and operated in an almost zombie-like fashion. He would lock himself in his room for days as he experimented with LSD and other illicit drugs. When he would finally exit his room, he would often be naked even in front of company. His concerned and frightened roommates told Chase that he had to move out if the behavior continued. When he refused, the roommates left and Chase was left alone in his apartment. It was during this time that he revisited the habit of animal mutilation, but this time with a more ravenous twist. He would hunt small animals such as cats, birds, and squirrels, and began devouring the animals in different fashions. In some cases, he would disembowel different animals and puree their organs in a blender with a Coca-Cola and then proceed to drink the concoction. He believed this gory smoothie would prevent his heart from shrinking. His desire for blood eventually caused him to be hospitalized when he was found unconscious in his apartment after attempting to inject rabbit's blood into his veins. While in the hospital, nurses and other staff nicknamed him Dracula after learning that he had been drinking the blood of birds and throwing them out his hospital window. Many nurses spoke of his infatuation with killing rabbits and drinking their blood. To satisfy his bloodlust, Chase claimed that he had been stealing syringes from cabinets and extracting blood from therapy dogs to drink. Doctors eventually put him in a cacophony of psychotropic drugs to combat his condition until it was believed he was no longer a threat to society. But once outside the walls of his institution, his mother slowly took him off the prescription drugs that held off the monster inside.
Why?
The first sign of relapse into psychosis came when he was found wandering in the Nevada area, nude and covered in cow's blood. His first murder in his month of terror took place on December 29, 1977. His first victim was 51-year-old Ambrose Griffith, an engineer, a husband, a father, and a beloved community figure. While Griffith was fetching groceries from his car, his wife heard two loud popping noises and turned to find her husband face down on the ground. She initially thought her husband had suffered a heart attack, but upon closer inspection, she found the body of her husband to be riddled with .22 caliber bullets. It had looked like Ambrose Griffith had been the victim of a random drive-by shooting. Chase's next victim was 22-year-old Teresa Wallen, a dedicated wife and an expectant mother. Wallen spent most of her days at home taking care of the home while her husband worked. On January 23, 1978, her husband would come home to find a much different sight than what he was accustomed to seeing. It was on that morning when Chase was seen wandering the neighborhood, checking to see if people had locked their front doors. When he arrived at the unlocked door of Wallen's residence, he placed a .22 caliber bullet in the mailbox and entered the house. He fired upon 3 months pregnant Teresa Wallen multiple times. One bullet hitting her hand traveled through her elbow and grazed her neck. The next bullet struck her in the head. Richard then got on top of Wallen's motionless body and fired a final shot into her temple. Once she was dead, Richard raped the corpse, stabbing her numerous times with a butcher knife.
You gotta.
He then cut off one of her nipples and began to drink her.
I hope this fool's burning in hell for this shit.
He cut out her kidneys and pancreas. His final act of desecration was to stuff dog feces down the throat of the mangled body.
Motherfucker.
Upon finishing, he placed her pancreas back in her body and fled the scene.
Hell no!
In the time between this murder and the next, Chase managed to shoot a 4-month-old puppy in the head and drink its blood. Richard Chase's next and final murders happened in brief and gruesome succession. 4 days after the murder of Teresa Wallen, Chase went on to massacre an unsuspecting group of 4 in a house just 1 mile down the road. Richard entered the residence of Evelyn Maroth on the morning of January 27, 1978. Upon entering the residence,
look at his fucking eyes, man!
Meredith, a family friend of the Maroths. Richard killed Meredith with a single shot to the head. In a panic, Evelyn Maroth frantically ran to her bedroom with her 6-year-old son Jason and 22-month-old David. Richard chased the trio to the bedroom where he shot the 6-year-old in the head twice. He proceeded to rape Evelyn, sodomizing her with a butcher knife. Multiple stab wounds were found across Meredith's body, causing severe damage to her neck and internal organs. Chase even attempted to cut out her eye in the process. Once he was finished with the desecration of Meredith's body, he proceeded to brutally mutilate the 22-month-old child. He dragged the toddler to the bathroom where he bludgeoned him until his skull cracked open and pieces of his brain splattered into the tub.
Oh my God!
It was at this time Chase heard a knock at the door. The 6-year-old child had a playdate who had just arrived.
No!
In a panic, Chase grabbed the toddler's corpse and fled the scene. When he arrived back home, he continued to dissect the body, cutting open the child's head and then removing his organs, which he went on to eat. This was his final meal of human flesh as he was arrested soon after.
Tell me they gave this fucker the death
Chase
penalty.
had failed to clean up the crime scene, leaving a full handprint and multiple shoe prints in Meredith's blood.
Tell me he got the death penalty.
Arrest, police were able to find the body of the toddler in a cardboard box in a vacant lot between a nearby supermarket.
Please tell me he got the death penalty.
The state pursued the death sentence, which they were able to achieve in less than 5 hours of deliberation. Chase attempted to plead insanity due to his history of mental instability, but his plea was denied. While awaiting death, Chase was put back onto his antipsychotic drugs, which he covertly collected for several weeks. The day after Christmas in 1980, the lifeless body of Richard Chase was found in his cell by prison guards. Chase had committed suicide the night before by using weeks worth of stockpiled prescription medication. The Sacramento vampire was dead. Richard Trenton Chase was born with a darkness that only blood could quell. A life of turmoil and abuse only fanned the flames of his murderous rage, and it led to the most gruesome murders California had ever seen up to that point.
At times that this world makes me, feel like we're lost. Make me feel like there is no hope. But then there's always that moment that brings me back and says, there are good people out there that want the same thing that I want. Love, friendship, you name it. There are people out there like that. But when you hear stuff like this, it breaks your heart, man. You know, this guy was a monster. He was a legitimate monster. This guy murdered kids, and that's where I draw. Don't, man, kill kids, man. Like, He said he hit that kid so hard until his brain, oh my God. Ladies and gentlemen, if you looked at this video with me, and you look into that man's eyes, nobody's there. That is the eyes of a soulless piece of shit. Alright? I swear if they'd have said that he had killed his mother, that would have... This was just as worse, or maybe even when I listened to those disturbing police calls that just broke me down. And I was about to break down in this one too, y'all. This piece of shit didn't get, there was no justice for the victims, really. He took his own life. No. Anyway, y'all, look, I'm gonna go right now. First of all, shout out to Dr. Horror. If this was to get a rise out of people, you sure got the rise out of me you probably was looking for. This got me angry. I got scared. I got sad. All emotions wrapped up into one. But that rage started to come more. And I was putting myself in the minds of his victims. Like, how would you feel somebody just runs up in your house? You don't lock your doors. You run up and a guy comes there, and not only is he's trying to kill you, he's raping you. I told you before, I don't fuck with rape, man. I don't think rape is funny. I don't fucks with that. If you a rapist or anything, you gets no fucking love from me. Fuck that shit. Anyway, guys, I'm gonna go, man. This was fuck, man. He didn't even get the. That's what pisses me off the most. He didn't even get. He didn't even get. There's no justice for the victims. These things happened years before I was even born, but fuck, man. Fuck.